Hello, this is the Psychic Zone with Todd Siegel, psychic detective and medium. Anyway, greetings, and also my website is www.toddsiegelpsychic.com. If you would like a reading, then go to my website. Anyway, I asked my followers on Facebook and YouTube for some topics on tonight's podcast. And some of these topics are pretty interesting, and I got a lot tonight. Oh boy. Let's see. I may not go to all the questions tonight, and I'm not going to be talking about other cases so much, or public cases tonight. Let's see. So, are we going to see any catastrophic storms larger than any time in history? Written by Clara. I don't feel that we're going to have anything super catastrophic. I think we'll have a lot of near misses this year, and I am talking about such as hurricanes, because I live on the East Coast, and we get a lot of hurricanes that travel up the coast, but I do see a lot of misses. I also see a lot of stuff around Mexico, okay, and all the surrounding areas off of Mexico. So that is one vulnerable place. Do I think the East Coast gets it more than the West Coast? I think the West Coast gets something pretty hard hitting out in the ocean. I do see it going up towards Hawaii. As far as the East Coast is concerned, I think there's going to be a lot off of the East Coast. Not so much in the Gulf, I don't think, this year. And I see slow-moving storms that build up speed and just hover in areas. North Carolina comes to me. As far as Florida, I do see some going towards Miami and those areas. What are some of the crucial months? I think October. I'm getting August, late August. And I think even this month, July, will be kind of active as well. Mostly on the East Coast is what I see. I also got a quick sort of glimpse of Japan, or a storm off of Japan. Okay, so that's the weather news. Let me see what else I have here. Todd, can you tell us about your social life? My response was, I have to record longer than 30 seconds for this show. And the next question, how to give your own head a shake. Okay, blocking your own path. I think this woman, April, is talking about, sounds like in sort of a dead zone, not being able to get out of depression, it sounds like, and grief, as she puts it. That's a hard thing. So Best thing for me is to get outside, be physical, do something completely different than what you do every day. Okay? Sometimes it's really, really hard to get out of your own headspace. I know the feeling. I even get it from reading sometimes, and I'll be doing a reading and I just can't shake it. I can't shake the feeling going on with what's happening to a situation or a person. And it's kind of like I sit there like a zombie for a little while and really think on it. So some of these readings really do kind of stay with me. But I believe her question had to do with a pet, trying to keep him alive. Let me see the details. A male, let's say 7-year-old tuxedo cat. I know he's got kidney disease. Okay. I'm not sure we're looking at kidney disease, actually. So I don't think she's brought him to the vet. First thing that I was seeing is blood sugar issues. I'm not really getting urinary issues with the cat. But I am getting possible blood sugar issues, kidney values, unless you've had the cat tested. Yeah, kidney values actually look pretty poor. They look pretty poor, but I think they could actually help him. So I do feel some possibility of help for the cat. So try to cheer up for now. And I hope all goes well. I have some really long questions here. Okay, this question might have to do with this question's from Linda. When we die, do we have a choice to reincarnate or no? It's going towards the white light part of the reincarnation process. Not really. We tend to think of reincarnation as we die, we come back in another body, but our spirit is also reincarnation, and our spirit can manifest in living beings. So I don't see reincarnation as a definite, we're coming back to a physical body again. The spirit is all sorts of levels of manifestation, from being in what you call the white light to being a more physical presence. I've seen people in very haunted environments become something else that they are not. They have become other spirits and manifestations. They start to look like them. They start to act like them. So it is rather complicated. I definitely feel that we've had lives before. I definitely feel some people have been in more lives than others. Some have not learned their lessons, some have. Our families are not necessarily tied to us in any spiritual fashion whatsoever, and sometimes they are. I know that's kind of heartbreaking to some people. But if we believe in reincarnation, we also believe the fact that we've had other families, we've had other parents, we've had other siblings, other loves in our life before. If you feel somewhat detached from your family, it means that you are probably a very different spiritual entity a long time ago or in a previous life. When we think of time, long time ago, on the other side, time just, it doesn't really exist. There is memory of time. There are pieces that come back to us on the other side. But time, it's like I once told somebody, how do we know we're going towards our future and we're not going towards our past in time? And how do we know that we are just in this one life and we're not in another life as well? Is that possible? Sure can be. So, whether it's our choice or not, I don't see us up in heaven saying, you know what, I really want to come back down. I need to make a lot of money in the stock market. I have a lot of things to do. I want to come back. I don't think it's quite like that. I don't think there's feelings. I don't think there's motivations. I think, things happen. And I do think we play a part in that. But we ascend to higher places as we mature in the past lives that we've lived. And I don't often think it is a choice. It's confusing. Now, there are past lives that are very very predominant, especially children will notice it. They will be, everything about them will tell you that they've been here before. Some of them draw things. Some of them can point at pictures saying, yes, I was there. This was me. Okay. Those are very strong past lives coming through to somebody new. But part of this goes into another question that I was asked from a gentleman that I'm friends with named Dale. He shares his experience of driving over a bridge with water underneath as a death experience. Okay, so that could be a possible death experience that he had in the past, or he could also be experiencing a spirit that comes to him who also suffered that death. Well, it's kind of an interesting thing. I know some people that are just scared of bridges, I think a lot of you might be. But remember, when we pass by the bridge, we could also be sensing somebody who either ended their life there or had a bad tragedy there. So keep open to that. It's possible it could be a past life experience, but you might also be sensing somebody who had a tragedy there. I do that every time, or oftentimes, when I'm riding my motorcycle and I'm going on a hairpin turn. I get the distinct sense. And sometimes you'll see, like a wreath of plastic flowers or cross over on the side, somebody who was lost at that turn in the road. But even without, sometimes I just sense, I can see a vehicle going off the road, hitting the trees, or going into a pole, or going off a cliff. I can sense that very strongly. And because I'm on a motorcycle, I sense the energy more intensely because I'm out. I'm out there. And you're really feeling the road. In fact, that happened to me the other day. I was driving on a curve in the highway, and there were other cars on both sides, and I had this guy in a truck, driving head on right in my lane. I was on my sport bike. The good news is that my anti-lock brakes actually work quite well. I had both wheels kind of in a skid and the front wheel turning out because I was peeling out to the right away from this idiot. And I see him sitting there holding his phone in front of his face, punching the keys with his other finger as he has his elbows on the steering wheel. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do that, but I swear there's some real crazy people out there. That's what I called a near-death experience. So let me go back to Dale's question. So he asks if we're more connected to our past lives when we're younger. Yes, because we're more open. We are more open. But when we reach an older age, that comes back too. Those experiences come back. I remember my great-grandmother was pretty old. She was in an old age home, and she had very bad dementia, and she was speaking in her childhood language, which was Russian. She couldn't speak English anymore. And she was speaking of childhood, and she was speaking of when she was young. And we also come into our memories of death. I'm not that old yet, but I've seen these experiences with a lot of people. I've talked to older people who all of a sudden have visitations from family members that come through to them. I had one man that said to me, he says, you got to tell me, he's in his mid-80s, and he says, I don't know what this means, he says, but my father was talking to me the other day. He wasn't there, but I felt him, and he was talking to me. And I was kind of like, oh boy. Because oftentimes that's telling me that this person is getting close to the end of their life. And then we have memories, we were sick, and then we have memories of what might have happened to us. And I've had older people share their experiences of near-death experiences in the hospital. But, out of all those experiences, they were positive. After they came to and they came back, they're like, I'm not afraid anymore. I saw this woman, she was helping me, she took me by the hand and she said, it's okay. And I realized that this woman was my grandmother. So I've heard all those stories too. What happens when somebody's life ends when they're young? I feel that they were in this life for a short time for a reason. I don't think it's genetics, and I'll talk about that too. But I definitely think they just weren't supposed to be here for a long time. And I do feel kind of like a mission that they had to fulfill. And then all of a sudden, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going back to what I know. I don't want this pain. Don't want this suffering. I'm just going back. And as humans are devastated because we see the loss. When we feel the loss and we're so sad to lose them. But I really truly believe they're in a good place. In a totally different life. They're right here, but we can't see them. And they're around other people as well. The other part of this question has to do, from Dale, through genetics, can it be true that past lives with the same DNA become us later on? Explaining unusual feats like driving over bridges with water. Okay. Genetics. Cells, bodies. The scientific point of view is organic life, organic matter. No. Sort of. But our bodies, our cells, our organs, I believe spirit makes us first. And spirit has an influence over the body. Okay? Sure, they can prove that you have the same DNA as your mom and your father. That's not telling the whole story. Spirit influences our DNA and genetics. Sometimes it can be physical. I mean, if I look at myself, I kind of resemble my mom's side and I kind of resemble my dad's side, but I'm definitely different. I'm definitely different. I have a look that you just cannot pinpoint in my family. When all my other cousins and relatives, you definitely know they're from the family. I have a cousin that looks just like me, and I mean, we look a lot alike, but she was adopted. So, science has yet to learn that organic life is from spirit, and that also shapes our destiny. How does a 40-year-old say, I got really sick, I've got this disease, but everybody in my family all lived to 99. How can I explain this? Spirit does affect disease, our immune system, Now, obviously, if the person lived in a very toxic environment, it's not going to help. But everything comes from spirit. Everything on earth comes from space. Okay? We are exposed to space. Space is not just dust and gas and comets coming down to Earth and feeding life here on Earth. It's also spirit. I truly believe that if you are very different than your family or your parents, that is not a bad thing. You have come into this life from spirit. Our parents are their own spirits. Now, somebody might say, but I'm so close to my family and we are just everything to each other. That's great. Then you have a similar spiritual influence. But you are not only your family. I have seen some, and they've dedicated their whole lives to just the family, which is a wonderful thing, of course. But they've also ended up doing absolutely nothing for themselves. They haven't explored their potential. They haven't explored how they feel about other things in this life. I have aging parents, and my father's not too well right now. And, we haven't always had a great relationship. And, it's kind of a shame because this life is short. Enjoy it. Love. Be with who you want. And just take advantage of the wonderful things in this life. But unfortunately for some, it's not that easy. Enjoyment comes in the afterlife to some, not in this life. So I am going through. So anyway, to recap, everything about our bodies, of course, they are physical, okay? Body mass, body organs, functioning parts, has a spiritual influence to it. We often get sick when we are not living in accord with what our spirit wants. And you could say to me, well, everybody in my family had a heart attack and they all had, I don't know, they all had stomach cancer and this and that, and that's what I'm going to get too. Well, shoot. If you keep telling your spirit that, then you probably will. Okay? Time to get back to your heart and what it feels to look at alternatives in life, and you might enjoy it. And it might heal you and protect you. It's very important. We are not just biological, we are spiritual. Somebody was asking me about aliens. Let's see. Boy, I have some long questions here, so you have to excuse me, because these are some really long questions. What is Suzanne writes, what is your experience with aliens and other intelligent forms from other dimensions? My experiences, I feel them intuitively. I've seen visions of them. I did have a couple of experiences with people who I felt were not of this earth. I couldn't prove it. But we are the offspring of life elsewhere, in other galaxies and other star systems. I don't think we've come from here. And I can feel it. I do get a sense that they are still around us. Not necessarily visiting in spacecraft, but I feel that they're already here in human form, also possibly animal form too, and spirit form. You know, that's, whenever I see a science fiction movie on space and traveling, beyond our solar system and all of that. I mean, this is all space age travel and stuff like that. But if you want to understand space, if you want to understand alien life, you have to do it intuitively. And every time I do that, boy, I see a lot of stuff. If I just focus and all of a sudden I see some kind of solar system or star system, I will concentrate more on that, and I see other worlds out there like you wouldn't believe. Sometimes I'd actually like to sketch them or draw them, because I think that it would be really kind of cool. I used to do that as a kid. I won't lie. I had visions of ghosts, and I saw ghosts, and I had visions of a lot of stuff, and I used to draw and paint them. I have a couple paintings actually in my house that were based on visions that I had. And one was kind of extraterrestrial, but it was also significant in my life as well. And one was of a dream of a ghost in a house that was on my mom's property. And I get goosebumps thinking about it, but I know the place was really haunted. I was a little kid. So, let me see. Boy, this is one long question. Okay, I'm just kind of laughing. This woman wrote, and I was reading everything that she was saying, but she wants to make an appointment with me, but she's absolutely terrified to do so. Why? I'm not terrifying when I do readings. I don't I mean, I am honest, but I don't tell you real bad things. And I also have I do a lot of prevention to help people either with heartache or with money matters to help avoid some pitfalls. We can make choices, and our choices do affect the outcome, even if I see the outcome. Okay. Wow. Okay, she has a lot. And okay, she is not well. Okay, well, I think she should do a reading with me. I think I could probably help her. Rather than go on the physical ailments of her, so tell the story of how this all came to be, like when I was running my B&B, and I was shy and nervous. And I gave customers predictions that came true, and that's true. Well, I've already discussed my past and a little bit how I came to this kind of work. And what happened to me, I really, I grew up in LA, believe it or not, California. And when I was about, how old was I? About 22, I moved to Boston. I lived there for about a year. Then I moved to the western part of Massachusetts and the other part of the state. I was studying natural healing. I was studying shiatsu massage, holistic cooking, how to cook for people who are not well, and how to make your life better. I studied plants. I just studied acupuncture. I studied a whole bunch of things. At that time, I came upon a house in the middle of nowhere. I was living at a house with eight children. I kid you not, 8 children. And I was friends with their parents, who were also very well-renowned teachers and writers of books. And I bought a motorcycle, and I kept it out in their barn. And I was looking for a place to move to, and I often the whole area there was all dirt roads, so I took this dirt road for a while, and I came upon this house that just drew me in. And I didn't see a for sale sign out in front of it, but I actually did see the listing somewhere in the newspaper or something, so I recognized the house. I inquired about the house, and I had to borrow some money from my grandparents, and then I also had to get a mortgage, and bought the house. And I was 25 years old. And my grandfather says to me, he says, well, how are you going to survive there? You got to make a living. I said, well, I'm going to run a B&B. I've got the rooms, got a whole bunch of used furniture, antiques, repainted, refinished stuff, made up all the rooms. Back then, we did not have Amazon or computers, so everything had to be bought in a town. I had to make some trips to Boston to get some stuff and bring it back. And sure enough, I had a B&B, one of the first vegetarian bed and breakfasts in New England, actually. It was my idea. I was a very good cook, and I cooked and cleaned all day long. That's all I did. And then more guests would come at night. And I was busy. I was even busy in the winter. I mean, I had a full house most of the time. And I was doing that for about, God, mostly around 15 years. But I lived a very, very humble life. A lot of quiet nights, no neighbors, out in the middle of the woods. And I really think it just got me in touch with myself. And I went through a lot of psychological insights and lived in simplicity. I grew my own food on the property, and I stored it in my cellar, and the whole place was self-sufficient. I cooked on a wood stove most of the time. I had a wood cook stove. I had a wood heating range in the other room. Actually, I had 3 wood stoves. I had one in my workshop that I used, chopped wood all year and cooked off of it. And the bed and breakfast was just, people loved it because I grew berries outside and fruit trees. They could pick the fresh berries for breakfast. I often cooked on a griddle outside and made pancakes for people. It was very cool. People loved it. But I heard things. I felt things. I felt the spirits of this old property. And I became them. I became part of their family. I communicated all the time to them. I thought I was going crazy. I would go to other old places in the area, and I'd start to see spirits pop up in the middle of a field. And then came guests that would come to the B&B, and I had a little book on the table. It was something about, your astrology sign or whatever. And people would tell me their astrology sign. And I'd start picking up the book and telling them about this and that. And then all of a sudden I'd see their future. I saw things not even related to, their astrology sign. And I didn't know where it came from. Next month, they'd come stay with me, and they'd tell me everything came true. How do you know that? How do you know my mother would need a new hip? Or they'd say, how do you know I'd get that new job? And that kept happening and kept happening. I thought, this is really weird. Till one year, my grandmother was very sick and she passed away. And I remember coming home from her funeral, and I filled up my favorite bathtub. I had an old cast iron clawfoot bathtub. And, the kind that didn't have an overflow, so if you filled it too high, it just went all over the floor. So I was just sitting there in my bathtub, and my grandmother's talking to me, and we're having a full-on conversation. And it was weird because she was telling me things that I didn't know. And I asked her questions about things, and she had an answer for them, and then later on became true. And I'm like, this is really, really weird. And she was a very strong lady in her life. And so one day, later on, I sought the help of a psychic. I was never into psychics, and I was very skeptical. And I saw in the back of a magazine, because it didn't have computers then, and I found this woman, very legitimate, housewife. She owned a store. took care of her husband, but she also happened to have been psychic. She wasn't on TV or anything, and she and I spoke, and she started helping me. And a lot of predictions that she made back then actually are true today. But she really helped me interpret what I was seeing, and I started believing it. But I didn't want to do anything about it for maybe like 10 more years, because there was no way in my mind that I could be a professional at it. And I didn't even desire doing that because I was full-time carpenter, cabinet maker, and also a horseman, and I raised a flock of sheep. So I was busy on the farm. I had no interest until people started coming to me in droves. I remember even my dentist, his wife would come to me. I helped find a dog, and I helped her with some spirit issues going on in her house, and then some other people in the area. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I got called in a murder case to find this woman's son, and found him. Then some more years went by, and TV was interested in me. They came out to do an interview because they know I worked on this case, and I did an interview. By the way, I don't know where that interview went. I tried looking it up, tried finding tapes of it. I couldn't find it. But I believe it was a Fox station out of Springfield, Massachusetts. I don't know what year, but it was a pizza delivery boy who was murdered. And anyway, if there's anybody in the audience who knows who that was or remembers the family, I would love to be in contact with you, because that was kind of the beginning of all this. So that is kind of my story. I've been talking to customers today, so my voice is rather hoarse. No, not that kind of hoarse. Let me see here. I have more questions. Are we going to see a complete financial or collapse financially with with our economy? Well, I can tell you this, and then people talk about the politics, and everybody wants to know about, what's going on with that. I do believe that the current president will probably continue. I think it's wrong. I've had family with dementia. I know what it looks like, and he has it. Without a doubt. I know that look. I know the fighting for thoughts and words, and it's apparent. Why we're not picking somebody else? Because there's, other intelligent people out there who we could choose. Well, it's because it's a political strategy, basically. It's not fair to any of us, but it's about control, and it's about power, and it's about manipulating our economy and our whole system. Oh, and then I can hear people out there, oh, well, you sound like one of these right-wingers, You're probably a racist, and you're probably a bigot, and you probably listen to right-wing news. So that's the response we usually get when we're not on the side of one versus the other. I'm on no sides. I'm on no sides. I don't think we have good choices right now. And I think people are bothered by it. And one other question is, will a war happen in the U.S.? No, but I think one should. Because people are not listening to common sense and people are divided. I think we would all be on the same side if we weren't so altered by the media out there. I have friends that are liberal and I have friends that are conservative. Now, when I hear one conversation going on with the liberals and I have one conversation going on with the conservatives in separate places, I can find commonality. But if you put them in the same room, oh no, they won't listen to each other. Okay? It's a bunch of stupidity, and it's honestly pissing a lot of people off. I mean, they're done with it. You know? When you go and build a house, do you have such conflicts about how to build the structure of a house? No. But this pertains to an emotional level. And people have unfortunately been brainwashed. So not much good is going to come from it. Not much good is going to come from it. I think that our head leader of office is not fit for it. I mean, it's obvious. So what happens if a war breaks out overseas and we have to make some very, conscious decisions and we have somebody who can't? Well, of course, other people will make the decisions, but it really goes to our leader as the final call. August looks pretty bad to me. And a possibility of war overseas. I'll just put it that way. Okay, I am going to... Oh, somebody wanted to know about Mothman. Did you all, hear about the tale of the Mothman? Well, I think it's pretty real. And do I sense any bridge collapses? Well, there was that tragedy up in Maryland. Awful, awful tragedy. Was there a, let's say, negative influence there? Yes, I believe so. I don't believe accidents happen. I do believe there are influence to happen. But I'll have to think on that one. Of other places where I think that's a potential problem. Let me see. And I have Stacy S. The connection. The connection between life and death spiritually. Well, we just because we're living doesn't mean that we're not connected to the other side. We are. And just because we're not living doesn't mean that we're not connected to the other to this life as well. It's all connected. Do cardinals and other sign symbols actually mean we can, after death, still connect with the living? I think what she's trying to ask is, do animals symbolize the connection between life and death? Absolutely. I think animals are messengers of life and they're messengers of death. You know, I think about these deer that show up on my lawn and they're so beautiful and their offspring are so cute, and it hurts me to think about them running out in the road and getting run over by a car, which happens often. But are the deer thinking about that? Well, they are pretty careful out in the roads. Although people driving aren't. But they are in the here and now. They are in kind of survival mode. Doesn't mean they don't have happiness there. They do. I see it. I see them playing with each other all the time, having fun. But animals have a much closer connection to death than we humans do because they see it more. They face it. It's part of the wild, part of the environment that they're in. We're in our warm houses when it's frigid cold outside. They have to live in it. You know? If it's hot outside and they don't get enough water, they'll die. So if you want to know the connection, if you want to contemplate the connection between life and death, the study of animals would be very, very important. And I'm going to see it. Now I have to go over to YouTube because I also asked people to send me questions there. Oh, we have, and I'm not sure this person's name, but she is talking about ley lines. Have you heard of ley lines? Yes, I have. What was that song like? Was it back in the 70s? Layla, 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 Layla. Okay, I'm not going to sing on here for you. So ley lines are, they're kind of invisible lines that run in all different directions around the earth, and they're supposed to be connected places, connected spiritually, places connected to other places spiritually, okay, high magnetic places. But my opinion is the earth pulses and it changes. Let's say you're massaging a friend's back, okay? And you feel tightness in this one spot, okay? And it's there for a couple days, then you come back next week, and it's gone. And it's gone to another spot, that tightness. The earth pulses. So some spots are, I would say, either constricted or the energy is very high in that one spot for a certain amount of time, and then it eases, goes to another spot on the earth that's highlighted. We hear this on the news all the time. All of a sudden, some events happen, let's say in Texas or somewhere, and then another event happens there, and then all of a sudden all these events are happening in Texas, and then we have some going on in the UK or somewhere, and then you hear about more stories, and or there's storms, there's bad storms hitting places, or there's earthquakes hitting places, and it keeps hitting and hitting. That's why I talk about the pulses of the earth. And I do believe it's energy of some sort which intensifies in certain areas. It can be psychological too. It could be a lot of crime going on in that place, and then another crime event, and So ley lines are supposed to be magnetic lines or points, positions that are supposed to give you clarity and insight, and to be a place of intensity, spiritual intensity, as far as I remember. They can also be places where you feel intense emotion negatively too. Because if you are psychic, the intensity of bad stuff is really bad. It really affects us. So it's kind of like being psychic in some of these ley line positions. You're feeling the intensity of the negative, where you're also feeling the intensity of the positive, or the insight into the future, the insight into other people, other beings. So that's what those places symbolize to me, and I used to live in a place like that. I'm just looking for other comments. Todd, I'm not sure what you are comfortable speaking about, but do you see the U.S. erupting into chaos at the end of this year or next? I'm hearing a lot about unrest in the U.S., and I'm all set to move next year, but it will be a move to a small town, but right now we're all in a big house. I don't see civil strife erupting. I don't think people have any backbone in them anymore to do that kind of thing. Only the bad ones who seem to come along from time to time. So there will be some protests, yes. If you live out in the country, you're probably okay, I think. So I wouldn't worry about it so much. The real strife and unrest will be going on with our economy. And like I've said, nobody will focus on this. The taxes and the tax system is the epiphany of corruptness. There's no accountability there. No accountability. So, I don't see it getting better. I don't see the U.S. on a positive track till about 2029, I believe. 2028 feels pretty good, but not much before. I'm not sure why yet. But I do feel that there's going to be some wars overseas. Anyway, I've spoken enough tonight. And I would love your comments about the show. You can put them actually on YouTube if you like, because it will be posted there as well as other carriers. I think it will be on Apple Podcast and iHeart. And anyway, thanks for this opportunity to talk to you. Like I said, if you want a reading, go to my website, toddsiegelpsychic.com. And I do have sales, usually about every month. I announce them on my Facebook page. So if you want to try it and you're looking for a discount, I do offer sales. And I hope to speak to you all soon. But that's all for now, and have a good night.